Okay, thank you for tuning in. This is Sharonda, and this is my podcast as well as my Facebook. Actually, I'm gonna say my Facebook and my YouTube channel. I'm not doing this live. I decided to do the way I record a little differently because I have since discovered that I can actually edit my video footage and add some little extra little things to it if I don't do it live. So that's what I'm doing now. For the topics, I will not be doing live in regards to the visual platform or presentation. I will be doing my love, spiritual enlightenment, and spiritual encouragement readings live when I do record, but I will be doing my topics not live because I think the authenticity in me doing the readings is warranted for a live presentation to where it's not alterated versus if I just talk on a topic regarding the paranormal, quote, supernatural. So today is Saturday, which is October the 14th. And so, as I mentioned in my previous recording, I said I was going to speak about optical illusion part two. Now, I did manage to, um, let's see, save some here from the last time I did it because basically it has a couple of verses here when it says when Satan attacks your mind or attacks the mind, and I did do some verses, and I'm going to actually do some more verses, but I am on a website, and we're going to speak about I'm going to read what is listed here on this website. What does the Bible say about magic, magicians, and illusionists? I feel as though God is ultimately the illusionist, believe it or not. I honestly feel as though um, it's more or less like a critical thinking tool to where um, to show or display to the world or to individuals as a person thinks. So if you're somebody who um, not necessarily that you're stupid, but if you're someone that doesn't think a certain way, God will present that in the atmosphere, particularly if you're not a communicative person or you don't communicate. Or if you think a certain way. Like if you don't communicate or if you have a hard time with conveying what it is that you mean, like true meaning and understanding, this is God's way of putting it in the atmosphere is what I feel. Like it's a lack or break in communication of somehow. And I think this is what is being displayed when you see things that defies logic, reasoning, and things of that sort. This is his way of conveying that to within the atmosphere as a person thinks. So we're gonna read here what it mentions about uh okay, so again it says, what does the Bible say about magic, magicians, and illusionists? Well, first off, I want to also stress that this is not a biblical nor religious podcast. I consider myself a spiritualist. I do not associate with no particular religion, belief, or system. There are a variety of different, belief systems out there that I may agree with. There are many of them I don't, but I don't affiliate myself with no particular one, no particular denomination. I began to do some research on Santeria and the different deities and things of that sort. But do I consider myself a practitioner of Santeria, Wiccan, Catholicism, Buddhism. It's just across the board. So it really doesn't matter one way or another. I don't tie myself to one particular belief system. I can only weigh what these odds has been presented in this life experience. Okay. So it says there is a difference between the magicians spoken of in the Bible and the magicians and illusionists one sees today at parties and in the stage show. The magicians in the Bible either gain their power from demonic forces or else they were little more than charlatans who pretended to have great knowledge or to discover secrets, tell fortunes, and predict things to come. Um, so put it this way. It's all God. It's all God. And God will have a way of showing how a person thinks and feels and how they receive information. The word magic is actually used 6 times in the Bible, 3 times in the Old Testament, and 3 times in the New Testament. However, the word magician is used 15 times. We know that through the deception of magic that the Egyptians were made to believe their gods actually had power. Genesis speak of magicians and Pharaoh's service. It is interesting to note that they were powerless to interpret Pharaoh's dream. Genesis 41:8, prompting Pharaoh to send for Joseph, who interpreted it correctly because he spoke the words God gave him. I think it's all based on perception. I mean, I have not read Genesis 41:8 that I'm aware of. So now the book of Exodus speaks of magicians practicing what is called secret arts. Exodus 8:7, as they brought up frogs, thereby replicating God's plague on the land of Egypt. Magic is Magic in this case was used in an attempt to mock God by mimicking the miracles God performed through Moses. Magic and sorcery play a major role in the pantheistic religion of Egypt. Its ancient documents record the magician's activities, one of the most prominent being the charming of serpents. These men were also self styled wise men and sorcerers, the learned men of the day, and the religious as well. 2 of these men, named Johnnies and Jambres, are mentioned in 2 Timothy 3:8. Any supernatural power that may have had come from Satan. 2 Corinthians 11:13 through 15. If not supernaturally inspired, they simply practice their trade by optical illusion, sleight of hand, or the learned physical manipulation of things such as snakes. Whatever the case, deceit was their arm, and they were sufficiently skillful to completely fool Pharaoh and his servants. In regard to the magician and illusionist we see today, if they are nothing more than entertainers, there is probably nothing wrong with being entertained by them. If, however, they are involved with the occult, clearly this is something Christians must avoid. The difficulty is in knowing which are associated with the occult and which are not. In any case, wisdom discernment are needed whenever dealing with any form of magic or illusion. I'm going to explain something to you. The illusion is in the belief system of itself. So that being said, God is the magician. God is the illusionist. And he will put things on display for you to say, okay, what do you think about that? He will. And oftentimes people be operating their own right and they all wrong. But you can't tell them nothing because they'll try to kill you. Because they don't want to hear no different. And you can understand that because, well, I can empathize and understand that because oftentimes if a person has been made to feel thirsty, and they used to get in their way by being vocal and opinionated. Of course, you're not going to sit there and let somebody take you away from um things that you have. So I can understand that. Now let's go back to Genesis 41:8. So it says, when the morning his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called all the magicians of Egypt and its wise men. Pharaoh it told them his dreams, but there was none who could interpret them to Pharaoh. Well, who is Pharaoh? Because like I said, there's times when being a nurse, a licensed practical nurse, I can walk in the room and know it's God in the bed. So he will fall down, fallen angels, and he'll sit back and watch you. And you'll know it's him. Because he'll put him in spirit. You can laugh about that and you can think that's a joke. It's not a joke. It's not a joke. Okay, so we're going to go to Exodus 8:7. But the magicians did the same by their secret arts and made frogs come up on the land of Egypt. Ultimately, it's all God. Everything people gonna realize everything is God. It is. And the biggest trick the devil ever pulled is convincing the world he did not exist. Okay? Second Timothy 3:8. Because these fallen angels fall down upon men, and that's why a lot of these men deny, I feel, their children. Who desire, who had the desire for this child? Because I'm being pulled to this woman, but these are not my desires for this woman. Your body is being used by way of spirits. Second Timothy 3:8. Just as James and Jambres opposed Moses, so these men also oppose the truth, being corrupted in mind and disqualified regarding their faith. So that's where low self-esteem come from. That's why a lot of people will exhibit that spiritual apathy where they just like this. Where is this coming from? Uh-huh. Because the desire is truly not here. And this is God's way of showing you that. Just sit back and watch and pay attention. Second Corinthians 11:13. For false apostles defeat deceitful workmen disguising themselves as apostles of Christ. You don't know where the damn spirit come from. You thought it was all about you and that's what you were feeling. You don't even know how you feel. Now, ain't that something? That's why I mentioned. I said you got to be very sure who you are. You don't even know how you feel. What does that mean? I don't know how. You don't even know who it coming from. You a certain milestone in life that we're all like, uh-huh. See, God has to make things very interesting because we typically as people we like to be entertained and we like to, feel good. Well, after a while that gets boring. So then you got to start feeling bad. So then you'll be able to appreciate feeling good and being entertained again. I know that sounds crazy, but that's the way life works. So we're going to finish up with a couple of verses. I'm not going to read all of these verses. I'm just going to kind of fiddle around, and some of them I may have already read in my optical illusion part one, where I mentioned about my daughter. She got in spirit and she put one of my wigs on. She put a dress on and she was just going back and forth. And it was just like literally like, and then she get in the chair and I was laid back there, like halfway sleep, and she got in the chair and it was like an emotion that was not natural. And that's when I had to realize that God does have a way, by way of quote Satan or the devil, of showing you when something is either wrong with her or going on with me or the environment. Is something that you need to pay attention to oftentimes. Attention seeking behavior oftentimes is the need for attention of the person or environment or something of the sort. So just ask for prompt understanding so he can give it to you. Because that's basically how he works. All right, so we're going to proceed. I'm just going to read for time purposes because I'm not going to make this a long podcast because, again, this is not a biblical nor a religious podcast. I consider myself a spiritualist. Okay. So, a thought just came in my mind. I need to get me a logo going and start and get me a get a logo going and start with bads and books and things of that sort. So Matthews 4, 1 through 25, it says, Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And after fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. And the tempter came and said to him, If you are the Son of God, command these stones to turn or to become loaves of bread. But he answered, It is written, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. Then the devil took him to the holy city and set him on the pinnacle of the temple. Now, it doesn't have all of it here, but I'm just, kind of like giving you an example. So that's being ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Like stones cannot be turned to bread. So that gives me an inclination that could it very well be some breaking communication or breaking interpretation as to what was being conveyed back then versus now, because English been around for years, but back then from what I was told, they didn't speak English, and the origins of language come from revelation from God. That's what it lets me know. And a lot of these spirits that are out here are not of the same like-mindedness in a favorable sense of the matter. And this is what a lot of the different origins of language come about, because everybody is not meant to know what I want to be conveyed. So what you see written here by way of English is God's way of letting you know what spirit is on the outside. Revelations 2:10. Do not fear what you are about to suffer. Behold, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison that you may be tested, and for 10 days you will have tribulation. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. Okay. Matthew 16:23. Be but he turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are a hindrance to me, for you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man. First John 3:10 says, By this it is evident who are the children of God and who are the children of the devil. Whoever does not practice righteousness is not of God, nor is the one who does not love his brother. So I'm gonna end with this last verse. Well, it's not the last verse, but this is the last verse that I'm going to speak on, and then I'm gonna just do a little bit more clarity about optical illusions. Ephesians 2, 1 through 3. And you were dead in the trespasses and sins in which you once walked, following the course of this world, following the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that is now at work in the sons of disobedience, among whom we all once lived in the passions of our flesh, carrying out the desires of the body and the mind, were by nature children of wrath like the rest of mankind. So I'm reading that, but I'm not really processing it because I'm thinking about what I really want to talk about. So, getting back to what I was mentioning about optical illusions, I do feel as though God has a way to trick and deceive, by way of Satan, to trick and deceive the mind, and that's his way of testing us to critical think. So, don't believe everything that presents to you. It's the point. Don't be so quick to judge. In other words, don't think just because a person is, quote, not formally trained that they're stupid and they don't have the ability to process information and apply it into everyday practices. And God will show you to the contrary. So that's what I mean by deception. A lot of oftentimes people will begin to formulate. I mean, this is human nature. This is natural. Will begin to formulate personal judgments and uh, prejudgment against the next individual. And then when God shows up, it's like, I thought you was da 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 A lot of people thought that. It's to deceive and trick the spirits. Like, as I mentioned about Halloween, which will be here in the next 2 weeks. Check out my podcast and my visual presentation about Halloween, deceiving and tricking of the spirits, and what that meant and what that came about. Check that out because you will see it's real. It's real in terms of the reality, but don't accept that as your reality. Because as I mentioned before, when you entertain Satan, what will happen? Satan will perform. Simple as that. So I'm going to conclude this episode of Spiritual Sense. Speaking about optical illusion, Satan's trickery of the mind, part 2. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you're more than welcome to comment in the comment section below. Until then, have a safe and wonderful day. Good day.